Last ditch. Boris desperately called for cabinet meeting as COVID infection spiraled out of control. Boris Johnson has cleared his diary today for a series of urgent meetings with scientists and his top team, while Health Secretary Sajid Javid has warned there are no guarantees Christmas gatherings will be able to go ahead. Tougher restrictions may be imposed in England next week as COVID infections soar. Boris Johnson is set to have urgent meetings tomorrow with scientists and his top team. Health Secretary Sajid Javid has warned there are no guarantees Christmas gatherings will be able to go ahead. It comes days after Mr. Johnson assured the public the government will not cancel Christmas. Measures on the table include a ban on households mixing and the closure of indoor hospitality venues and non-essential shops within days. Health Secretary Sajid Javid has failed to rule out a circuit breaker lockdown in England before Christmas to cut pressure on the NHS. Fears the government will cancel Christmas come as official figures show there were another 82,866 cases of COVID today, up more than 50% in the past week. COVID cases topped 80,000 for only the fourth time since the start of pandemic, with the new Omicron variant up 50% in just 24 hours. The government's scientific advisors said it was almost certain there were hundreds of thousands of new Omicron infections each day. Mr. Javid warned there were no guarantees that Christmas gatherings would be able to go ahead as planned. The government's SAGE Committee of Advisors has cautioned that hospitalizations could surge to between 3,000 and 10,000 a day unless urgent action is taken. The Health Secretary admitted that everything is under review after the grim assessment suggested that infections could reach 2 million by the end of the month. Boris Johnson has cleared his diary for tomorrow for a series of urgent meetings with scientists and his top team. Number 10 said that the PM was in touch with his advisors and keeping abreast of the data, while the four nations of the UK met for a Cobra meeting on the situation. But, with just 5 days before families are due to gather for Christmas, a source said there was no plans for a press conference tomorrow announcing any changes to restrictions. Mr. Javid, 52, admitted that scientific advice warning of a possible surge in hospital admissions from Omicron was worrying, and that he would be cutting down on hugs with his elderly mum. He suggested the government could not rule out any new measures before Christmas, adding, "There are no guarantees in this pandemic. At this point we just have to keep everything under review." Reports suggest that Boris Johnson could bring in another lockdown after Christmas. The Prime Minister is reportedly drawing up plans for strict COVID regulations after the festive period, which could include a 2-week circuit break lockdown and a ban on indoor mixing. This comes as independent SAGE have urged the government to consider these measures, in a desperate bid to quell the spread of the Omicron coronavirus variant. Draft regulations are already being prepared, and these could mean a ban on meeting other people inside, except for work purposes. The plans may also see the partial closure of pubs, restaurants and other hospitality with an outdoor service-only approach. And on Friday, the Prime Minister was presented with a number of options about a Plan C, which range from mild guidance to nudge people, right through to lockdown. Allies of Mr. Johnson were quoted as saying that he was keen to go down only the guidance route, and avoid the full lockdown, but they suggested he had to be realistic about the threat of the Omicron variant, which is very contagious. The advisors had recommended moving to restrictions seen in Step 1 and 2 of the easing of lockdown restrictions in the spring. This included a ban on indoor mixing and indoor hospitality. And they reportedly warned against delaying further interventions until 2022. The UK reported more than 90,000 new COVID cases in another record daily total on Friday. Cases in another